myself. Can you all hear me without the mic? Probably. Do you need the mic on? No, I'd rather not have a mic. Anyway, this is the portion of the poetry reading that is very old-fashioned. I'm so excited to hear the exciting readings of Kevin and Billy. That was very exciting and may enter my creative process as my life goes on for the next, maybe 10 years or so, but who knows. And so that was very fun. Thank you. The only thing that's like what you do, really, is I have an electric toothbrush, and I dance to it when I brush my teeth. So that's getting there, I know that. I haven't channeled any entities, so touch wood. That would scare me a lot. So I'm going to read some loose poetry, and then I'm going to read from a book that that came out in late 17, The Girls with Stone Faces. And I'll read the loose poetry first, and most of this is what I call my queer poetry. Everybody can still hear me? And if that thing rumbles by again, you paid them $15. Could you pay them $15 not to do that again? So this poem is called A Blessing. This is what a blessing is. 36 years, you and me, waking up together, going to work, enduring nothing much. The blessing. Only some men in the street who yell at us, which has happened only 4 times. The blessing. And once, 3 boys spitting at close range at us, saliva running down the front of your coat, dog shit from a speeding car at us, threats of hurt, violence, the nighttime streets almost empty, how fast we'd run. Years asking for the common privilege of benefits, workplace, same-sex, services denied. We are lesbians. We are small women, and the world does not care if we are friendly or kind. We do not hold hands in public. We do not kiss goodbye in the car. We are not what we are supposed to be. This is Canada. This is what a blessing is. This is not a country where the death penalty might apply. So this is a poem from Earl Street, which is coming out early 2020. And so this Earl Street comes out with Talon Books, and it's about the street where I live in Victoria. So it's easy. So I write in, I'm going to combine all of this stuff too. I write in projects. So whenever I get a project in my brain, which was The Girls with Stone Faces, about 2 sculptors, and this project was about my street. I thought, this is going to be so easy. I just look out my window, I write a poem. The trees in bloom, I write a poem. There's a kid on the street pulling a wagon, I write a poem. So it was pretty easy. That's what I do. I just keep my focus on a project until I have, 70 poems. That's all you need. And then I send it in. So this is one of the poems about Earl Street, and it's called In the 4 a.m. The chorusing rain so ravishing, we rush out of the house to make love. A before dawn silvery love. The cupped radiance, street lights bright as upswelling joy. The rain so glamorous, we light up 2 cigarettes. Our backs puddled in boulevard grass. Under bare trees, we study the miniature teardrop chandeliers, blow collapsible smoke into filled funnels of wet. The rain so clamorous, our breathing slows as though we've started to live underground. In Montreal, I wanted to make love on Mount Royal, wintertime, especially in the winter, to climb the low slope, blankets in sacks for the snow, to press small warming dents under the boughs. My husband at the time declining the white invitation, though I asked more than once. But tonight, this soft, fizzily falling, this rain insistent as pins, the contact so unmistakable, murmurous, cool, the undertones, the universe falling again and again. So this poem that I'm going to read next appeared in the Malahat Review, which came out a month ago, a beautiful cover. Is that not gorgeous? Beautiful colors, the image is so fabulous. I love this image. And so it appeared in this Malahat review. It's called The Queer Issue. So there are all kinds of queer people in this issue, and I thought really old lesbians, we had to make an appearance, so I did. And this one is after a poem by an American poet called Mark Halliday, and he wrote a really great poem called Couples, so it follows the style a little bit. And it's called A Certain Uncertain State of the World. And it has an epigraph by Terry Castle, who's a British academic lesbian. And she says, "Why is it so difficult to see the lesbian, even when she's there, quite plainly in front of us? In part because she's been ghosted or made invisible by culture itself. All the old lesbians in their old import cars, she's a brunette, the other's a blonde, they do not call themselves old. The car's a wagon, teal, unwashed, but as long as it can take them from here to the movies, they don't care. Most nights it's dark and the neighbors have lives of their own, most of them. They get their hair dyed in another town. They leave the house in a hurry that night, injuring the brunette's right hip, maybe her back, trying to get to the movie on time. Her sister's a redhead, also a lesbian. Last week, her sister called to say that she had grown old overnight. That happens, but mostly in science fiction. Woke up with runnels from her nose to her chins, marionette lines. The brunette worries about looking too much like her mother, who is dead, which would worry anyone. The blonde worries about acting too much like her father, if you know what I mean. They leave the house that night in a light rain to watch The Reader at 9. But remember when they get there that the movie starts at 9:30. Parking lot full, first show still on. The Reader is a four-star romance. Adolescent boy, older woman, blonde, and not really much older. They get a lot of them, these old lesbians, boy, girl, blonde, even though so much has been reinvented. They haven't given up on the world, but it's not simple. Today, the cooking spray wouldn't spray, the nozzle jammed up, all skittery, they took it back. They still call themselves lesbians. She subscribes to Lesbian Connection. Pronouns have always been a problem. The other was a separatist in her 20s. If only they could reinvent the pronomial, but it's not simple. They sit in the parking lot in the rain. They're not married, but they could be now. That's the law. They used to be afraid of each other. Other people, like the neighbors, call them lesbians too, if they call them anything. Old women are always in danger of disappearing. After a while, the rain picks up. The narrative too. 29 years. The blonde has forgotten her Tilly hat. Maybe they'll get married next week. Maybe they're more afraid of each other than ever. They still have their principles. Maybe they never did get kicked out of paradise. You'd have to speak to them about that in private. They don't stay. They don't see the movie. There's still so much to do, reinvent. It's raining. They're disappearing. They don't have time to sit in a parking lot. Oh yeah, okay, one more of the loose poems. So this poem is called Margaret. Am I making enough contact with you, by the way? Called Migrations of Perspective. And this summer, last summer, in Vancouver, there was a grand international meeting of the International Ornithological Society. And so all the people who are interested in birds come and had a huge convention in Vancouver. And they, what's his name, Steve Collis, some other poets, put together a little chapbook, anthology, of some poets who were interested in writing a poem about birds. So I did that. Oh. Migrations of Perspective. Few will have heard that some birds among the migratory sooty fox sparrow have decided to stay put, shunning the long flights from here to there and from there back to here, though the word decided may not be quite the right word, but at the same time may not be exactly wrong. It was 1975 that those birds, the same year that my sister decided to become a lesbian. Women's liberation, who hasn't heard about that? Though again, the word decided may not be exactly. The same year that a small group of Jane Goodall chimpanzees decided to break away and move slightly south, leaving the larger Jane Goodall chimpanzee group, who then decided to murder those who had decided to leave. Though the words decided, murder. So many queries, definitions, decisions, instinct, groupthink, or consensus. Even the year 1975. There were years earlier when slum flights were canceled, in doubt especially in the case of the south-moving chimps, who are officially no more. Even in the case of my sister, the evolution of a new lesbian being perhaps slightly more delicate. Some decisions take longer, some are more easily tracked, some laced with uncertainty, punishments, and mine too, though the year was 79. Vis-a-vis those migratory sooty fox sparrows, their wise change of lifestyle, no more tricky flight patterns, early morning takeoffs, long distant hauls, results in an official name change situation. Everything changes, even perspective. My sister and I are now called something else, these days often queer. As for the bird, the fox sparrow, those who no longer migrate, they are now called the residential sooty fox sparrow, though the word sooty may not be entirely right. Hey guys, still with me, and I am now going to read from The Girls with Stone Faces. Has anybody heard of these gals? You have. Have you heard of it just because of my book? Yeah. Okay. Right. So these gals, this is an iconic photograph of Frances Loring and Florence Weil. And they produced amazing neoclassical sculpture in the first half of the 20th century. Beautiful, beautiful work. I first encountered their work in Ottawa in the art gallery, the National Art Gallery. And my sister lives, the one who became a lesbian in 75, yeah. So, who got the Runnels now? She lives in Ottawa, and I visit her at least once a year. And when we visit, I always go to the gallery because there's so much beautiful stuff there. And this particular year, maybe 8 years ago, there was an exhibit of mostly their work. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. I had never seen their work, and when I saw the writing on the wall and saw that they were two women, I thought, wait a minute. So I wrote this, that's how I got into this project. So I kind of fell in love with them, and that's what happens, I sort of fall in love with things. So I'm going to read a paragraph at the beginning of this book that locates and tells you a little bit about these two women. So now you can say, when somebody asks if you've ever heard of them, you can say, yeah, sure. I read in front of groups, and really I have to say almost no one has heard of these two. And you'll see, but they were contemporaries and as well known in their time as the Group of Seven. Who's heard of the Group of Seven? Okay. Rest my case. So I wrote this book particularly to memorialize them. I thought, these women, come on, raise the profile. So, Florence Weil and Frances Loring met in 1906 at the Art Institute of Chicago. Florence was 26, Frances 19. They became close friends immediately. That first meeting they always described as a click experience. For almost 60 years, they lived their day-to-day lives, sculpted their neoclassical sculpture, made their living, and built their reputations as prominent Canadian sculptors together. For most of this time, they lived and worked in a deconsecrated church. They needed the height of those ceilings because they did massive pieces of work. They were pivotal in the Toronto art community and were founding members of important national art organizations. Known as the Girls, their friends included A.Y. Jackson, Fred Varley, Arthur Lismer, and Emma Goldman. Their sculpture is displayed in public art galleries, in parks, on buildings, and on Parliament Hill. They died in 1968 in a nursing home within 3 weeks of each other and 1 floor apart. They're a sad, sad ending. So I'll read 3 poems. This one's called No. So this book contains poetry about their art. So I looked at pieces and then wrote poetry about their art. It's called ekphrastic poetry. And then it also contains biographical material. So there's a bit of a narrative in this book as well. No Side Saddle Beauty. She straddles the bench, boots blunt on the floor, the knife in her hand, a penknife, sharp, shining steel, sharp as the woman's right eye, slices away at the lower half of the baby's wet ear. Her apron is canvas, clotted with clay, grit, mud of the day, damp parings the size of sowbucks or the wings of a fly. The apron, her hair, her trousers, all dunnish gray. She slices the spot where the baby's ear bridges the baby's lined skull, the spot